So our division rivals don't like Nakobe Dean. Let's talk for a few minutes. What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Stephen Hyder, Gate City Sports Channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Hey, what's good, guys? This is maybe the first, second, third time you caught my content and you enjoyed today's discussion. If I can ask you to do me a huge solid here, guys, hit that subscribe button. We just crossed over 5,000 subscribers. We're heading towards 10,000. I would love for you to be a part of that equation. Just need you to subscribe to do that. To my OG subscribers, if I can have you guys just hit that like button for me, smash the thumbs up button, help me spike the algorithm and get us in front of new people that we can potentially convert into our own little community here, guys. All right, y'all, today's topic. So I was taken back because I felt like out of everybody, I was probably the one who was a little bit more moderate on Nakobe Dean because I'm not too sure of exactly how Jonathan Gannon plans to use the young man. And I'm also not too sure if he's going to be a day one starter, although I think it's evident, it's only a matter of time before the young man ascends to the ranks of a starting middle linebacker in this Philadelphia Eagles defense. But I do think there's a distinct possibility that TJ Edwards starts off as the starter early on in the season, with Nakobe Dean kind of working his way in until he basically takes that position. With that said, I noticed some of our division rivals are quite bothered by the Philadelphia Eagles taking Nakobe Dean. It's just very funny to me. Because I'm going to be honest, guys, if I genuinely don't think a player is that good, if I genuinely don't think a player has that much talent, then I genuinely don't waste my time commenting and trying to argue with people and making illogical arguments on top of it all. It just, to me, it's a funny proposition you guys are putting yourself in. I don't get it personally. With that said, for the Eagle fans out there and for some of our division rivals that just want to hear how I think the Eagles might utilize them, I think this is an interesting conversation because when you talk about utilizing linebackers, especially in Jonathan Gannon's scheme in particular, there's the concept of where you have to figure out off-ball versus on-ball and then that utilization of how a player might be used. So in my opinion, I would think that Nakobe Dean would probably be a guy that could potentially have the green stick, the green dot of play calling tasked to him. I don't know if he'll get that right away, but over time. I mean, there's been some discussion about might Anthony Harris be the guy who gets the green dot of play calling early. I would think that Nakobe Dean is the type of guy that you trust to relay the play call to the rest of the players and to set everybody into the actual alignment correctly. I do think that he could potentially be that type of player, but to be fair, on the subject of who should not be named, the Micah Parsons in Dallas, Michael Parsons originally had to have the green dot taken away from him. They wanted him to stop thinking and play a little bit more off of instincts. So, we'll have to see how that works out with young players because I do think that could be quite the task for a young player to take over. So, we'll have to see in Nakobe Dean. So that would lead me to believe that Nakobe Dean's primary function will be an off-ball linebacker. But in saying that, I don't know that Jonathan Gannon might not conceptualize the defense to have two edge rushing or pass rushing linebackers, rush linebackers on it, right? Because a lot of times, you guys ask me my thoughts about 34 versus 43 and like, Steve, what is a 50 front? Like, what are you guys talking about when you say that? When you say like a 50 front? Guys, it's just talking about how many linemen are on the line of scrimmage. So when I say on-ball linebacker, I mean a linebacker that is on the line of scrimmage, basically. They're on the ball, not on the line of scrimmage literally, but you guys get what I mean. So when we talk about on-ball, or we talk about how we're going to structure this, or with a rush linebacker, I think there is reason to believe potentially that Gannon could take guys like, Nakobe Dean, Kyron Johnson, you got Hassan Reddick, and stand them up and then take them outside of your ends. So obviously if you're in a 30 front, a 3-4 front, you can have guys aligned in a 4-eye. Normally when you're in a 4-eye, those two outside guys are in a single gap or gap and a half assignment, while the nose tackle is 2 gapping. And then if they're in a 5, if you got 2 guys on a 5, which would be your Okie front guys, those normally all 3 down linemen are 2 gapping. So basically, rush linebackers are outside of those defensive ends, if you will, those 4-eyes or those 5 techniques, either dropping into the flats into coverage or coming on a blitz, basically. So, I don't know. I have no clue if the Philadelphia Eagles would conceptualize Nakobe Dean fitting that type of role. Because we also know that there is influence from Mike Zimmer, and Mike Zimmer used to like to use a lot of A and B gap pressure from linebackers. And that could be where they use Nakobe Dean in terms of his pass rush ability. Delayed blitzes. those fire zone blitzes, dog blitzes, stunts and crosses from your linebackers to gain pressure. There's a lot of ways to gain pressure, guys. I mean, it's really difficult to describe that. Every linebacker to an extent is probably going to play a little bit what we would call on ball, but we're talking about percentages. We're talking about ratios. And I don't know that when you have a guy like Micah Parsons who played 300 snaps last season kind of on ball as a pass rusher, I don't know that you're going to see that kind of utilization from a guy like Nakobe Dean within Jonathan Gannon's system. I don't know, guys. He could, but until I can actually see the film and see the way that they're actually utilizing the player, that's really difficult to say, guys. I have no clue. That's a really difficult judgment to make right now. What I will say is I feel like Kyron Johnson, Patrick Johnson, and Hassan Reddick are the guys that seem to be more natural fits as kind of those rush linebacker types. Okay, I'm not saying that Nakobe Dean can't play that role. I'm not saying you can't use a Kyzir White, although he hasn't played that role in the NFL primarily. I'm not saying those dudes can't do it as well. Davion Taylor, he's got some underlying athleticism, no doubt about it. Sure, you could definitely use players in ways that they haven't been used prior, or in ways that you haven't called prior. We'll have to see. I mean, there's just no telling how they envision the utilization of these players until we see the film. Now, what I think it's difficult is when you try to project starters. And I already talked about this a little bit, guys, to where I said, TJ Edwards could potentially be kind of the early Mike in terms of starters. Now, mind you, starter just means you take the first snap. It doesn't mean that you play the majority of snaps. I think that's a completely separate conversation. Starter is just the guy that's on the field for the first snap of the game. He gets the log as the game started, unfortunately. I think when you get into some of the nuances of how guys fit in terms of the way teams are attacking you, in terms of the way that the defense envisions your strengths and how they want to utilize the player, I think that can highly determine or highly affect your snap count. That's where we have to figure out, guys. It's like Nakobe Dean versus TJ Edwards, right? Kyzir White can play the mic as well, by the way. How often, do they want to drop guys in coverage? Because I think it's a big part of Gannon's scheme is to drop a lot of dudes into coverage and be able to stop the run with a four-man front. I don't think he wants to. I think he wants to dedicate four guys to stopping the run, and that's it. He doesn't want to have to keep bringing extra guys into the box to stop the run. That leaves you a lot of time to either bring guys for pressure or to drop guys into coverage, so that way you can potentially make the quarterback hold the ball longer to get your pressure to him. I don't know. I mean, we will have to see how exactly Gannon envisions playing his guys, to be quite honest. What I will say is that the biggest fight I see on the roster right now is going to come at that will linebacker spot. Because Davion Taylor is a draft pick. Third-round draft pick. Immensely talented. Very athletic guy. I will tell you, if you looked at their overall, and this is why I always tell you guys to be careful. When you look at the overall 40 times, Davion Taylor put up a 4.49 40 compared to the 4.69 40 that Kyzir White put up. But this is why you have to know splits, guys. This is why scouts, we look at splits more so than that full total time. It's not that the full 40 time doesn't tell you something. It tells you, the underlying athleticism of a guy, sure. But knowing the split times are far more important. And you look at the split time, you look at Kyzir White's initial 10-yard split, you can see the big difference there between Kyzir White's initial 10-yard split compared to Davion Taylor. Davion Taylor is definitely more of a build-up to speed guy. Kyzir White has that quickness you would expect from a guy who's played some safety. Mind you, it was a rover safety, so in the box type. But nonetheless, he has a lot of initial quickness for a guy of his size, to be honest. So, when you look at that will linebacker position, what we're talking about is backside pursuit from the will. The Sam linebacker, that's play side, right? When you look at a guy like Hassan Reddick or Kyron Johnson or Patrick Johnson, whoever's over on that side, basically, their main goal is to turn the run back inside. They want to turn that run back inside. But if you're playing on the will, the weak side, your main goal is to track and run that play down from the backside. It's backside pursuit. So, Kyzir White, guy that we gave a little bit of guaranteed money to. We didn't pay him. I'm not going to say we broke the bank, but we paid him a little bit. I mean, I think his contract is more favorable than a lot of people realize. Kyzir White's a good player, man. I mean, all he kept doing with the Los Angeles Chargers was beating out their highly rated draft picks. They had a hard time getting some of their draft picks on the field because Kyzir White was playing that well. I mean, he was just that good last year. The guy led him in tackles. He can play. He's a good football player. He can cover. He can tackle. I'm not going to say that he's particularly great in run defense, but he's not the Achilles heel of like an Eric Wilson. Eric Wilson was, you guys know I was not high on that signing last year. I said what I said, and I was right when I told you guys man, y'all going to be frustrated when you see this dude in run defense. Kyzir White doesn't give me that kind of like vibe from him. I think Kyzir White has a little bit more toughness to him, but that's not where the strength of his game lies. I do think it's going to depend upon the role. I do think that we will have a run defense team to where when you got those guys, you got those matchups, those teams that are going to try to run the ball down your throat, you've got those matchup guys. You've got the TJ Edwards. You've got the Nakobe Deans, right? You've got the Davion Taylor, who I thought was really good in run defense last year. But the main thing here is Davion Taylor's got to stay on the field. The reason that when I sent my tweet out today, when I put that tweet out, the reason I didn't put Davion Taylor, who I do think is going to have every opportunity to win the job as a draft pick who's here this season and next year, still under contract, the reason I didn't elevate him inside that tweet to that starting role is because of injuries. He's got the draft pick status. He's got the underlying athleticism. I thought he was really, really good in run defense last year. I do think that he could be potentially a pass rusher even from the linebacker position if given the opportunity to do that. But nonetheless, man, Kyzir White just keeps proving people wrong. And I think that will linebacker, that's something I'm going to be watching in camp. I think that's going to be one of the really, really good position battles inside of, training camp. And I even left out my guy Sean Bradley in a tweet. I had to go back into the comments and adding back in there because that's just how deep this linebacking core is. This linebacking core is absolutely stacked. Hey, I'm excited, man. I really don't care. Hey, bring your hate, division rivals. I don't care. I know that this Philadelphia Eagles team has taken a complete 180. It has taken a 180 in terms of the way that it has devoted resources towards the linebacking core. I think we're in a good spot. I'm not saying that this team is like a top 5, top 10 linebacking core in the league. I'm saying this team is vastly improved at the linebacker spot. We got a lot of young talent in the room. Got to develop it. We got a very young positional coach. Guys, keep in mind, our positional coach at the linebacker spot he's younger. He was younger than a couple of those guys last year. So, I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it all plays out, guys. All right, with that said, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think. I appreciate y'all's time and attention, guys. And I'll see y'all on the next video.